Hello, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. And special thanks to Cindy Blake, Product Marketing Manager, that is going to lead today's session. We're going to try a new approach. I know historically, prior to a lot of us being here, there were some regular enablement sessions to outline kind of new features and capabilities with each monthly product release. In talking with the product marketing team, we feel like dedicating a session every single month probably a little bit overkill. So what we're trying out here is once a quarter to invite folks like Cindy from the product marketing team to come share with us, a quarterly view of what are the most important sales relevant insights for product releases, to share not only what's come out today in 12.2, but some of the past releases and how that can influence and enrich your customer conversations, as well as some of the things that are coming up. I'm going to mute the lines here except for Cindy, but let me go ahead without further ado to pass it to Cindy to get us started today. Cindy?
Great. Thanks, David. Yeah, and by all means, if anybody has any questions throughout, jump in. So I put a document in the issue for today's call that we wrestled with what's the right way to show this information, and I think in terms of the GitLab methods, probably a Google Doc is the best way to do this. I'm open to suggestions going forward, though. I'm going to share my screen, and I apologize for my voice. I sound like I swallowed a frog. So what we want to do is we want to look at the last 3 releases, kind of calling out things that are premium or gold that can help you upsell. And then also we'll look ahead at what's coming. Now, when we look back at the last 3 releases, the PMMs got together and talked about this a little bit, and we kind of thought it might be the most helpful to look at it according to these kind of 4 dimensions. So something that is going to help your existing customers, and they've complained about it, we've fixed it, they're happy, it will make them happy. Number 2, things that were barriers that kept people from buying. Number 3, just some incremental progress on some major areas that are worth noting. And then the 4th is something that is big, and we may have an MVC out there, but you really don't need to push it just yet. So what we want to do is identify those things that you might hear, marketing talk a lot about, your customers might ask you about because marketing's talking about them, but understand these things are coming and kind of tread lightly on some of these newer capabilities. So, and then when we look at what's coming in the next 2 or 3 releases, I kind of took that along the lines more of kind of grouping it by topics. We'll figure out over time how to tie this with the force management material, and probably tie these to value proposition or value drivers and use cases. But I wanted to, this is sort of an MVC to take a stab at it. And then I also put in here a link to the maturity page. If you haven't seen that, this is always good to keep in mind, because it's meant to show you which features and capabilities are, minimal, viable, and lovable. So that's always good to keep in the back of your mind. And I thought there's probably enough new folks that you all may not be aware of that. So again, open to feedback, not only on the content, but the way that this is rolling out and the way that that I'm presenting it. So let me jump into things that people complained about and we fixed. So this directed acyclic graphs, I can't even say it, DAG for short. This is something that is meant to improve the way that we did some things in the past. It has to do with customers who have complex teams and complex pipelines. And William provided a really good example here, which is if you were doing an iOS and Android update, and you wanted to let one of those complete and go and get pushed before the other one did, it allows you to do, to have that separation. So, and I forgot to underline that. Another thing that is kind of an improvement is publishing from landing pages to project artifacts and reports. And this has to do with securing the traffic with HTTPS. So this is sort of a compliance thing. Customers have been asking for it. Confidential merge request, that one's pretty self-explanatory. Deploy boards for group level Kubernetes instances. That's a premium item. As we look ahead, I'm also kind of identifying things that are more Kubernetes based, so that those stand out. David, oh, okay, never mind. The things to unblock sales, these are things that have been reasons for customers not to buy. So on the security side, let me explain what's going on there a little bit more broadly. So we've had a paradigm that says you shouldn't block the build for security vulnerabilities, but different enterprises have different risk appetites. And so from that standpoint, they might have a policy that says we will, break a build. We won't move something into production that has vulnerabilities. Usually that has critical vulnerabilities or maybe high vulnerabilities. But this is a policy that they want to be able to automate and enforce. So we now have the ability for approvals. We've had the ability, kind of in a kludgy way, to be able to use approvals. This allows it some additional rules to be set up so that the merge request can be approved or not based upon roles and so forth. But one of the challenges has been that you could set the rule to say security has to approve it if it has a vulnerability, and that meant that the security team had to go in and review every single merge request. So that really wasn't workable. Where we're going to get to next, by the way, on this is eventually we want to have it where it would be by severity. That's out of scope for 12.2, but eventually we'll be able to say for critical vulnerability, it should behave a different way than for something with a lower criticality. Another thing is dependencies, or it's also called bill of materials. We've called it a project dependencies list, but customers may refer to it as bill of materials. This is something that came up in the software composition analysis wave by Forrester. They kind of dinged us for not having this. So, and it's also something that Black Duck has. What we're still not on par with Black Duck. Don't take that wrong, but it gets us one step closer. So the biggest difference between us and Black Duck is still the fact that they look at not only is the library vulnerable, but is the code within the library vulnerable. So it's a little bit more granular. We're not there yet, but the bill of materials is a step in the right direction. Incremental progress, merge trains. There's a lot that's been going on with merge trains. They were first released in 12.0. We continue to improve upon those, and 12.1 had some more improvements. The next big thing will be in 12.5, where we have support squash and merge in the merge trains. But you can read about this. I don't want to read all this material for you, but the merge trains allow you to sequence things so that you can, if everybody's working on a bunch of issues and merge requests, then you don't want them to clobber one another and to have conflicts. And so this is a way of sequencing those so that to reduce the merged conflicts, but yet improve your velocity. Visual reviews, these are just in Starter, but they make it easier to look at the review app, or to provide feedback directly using the review app. So it's kind of cool. Feature flags, this is another one of those things that's, it started in 11.4. It's continued to build. There was a lot more progress in 12.2, and with several issues here that have been resolved, and continuing to build. Feature flags allow you to roll out things based upon that flag. So you can control how things are released in smaller batches and get customer feedback. And maybe some people use it almost like a beta. And so again, just more granular control over that deployment. Another thing is cross-project merge dependencies available in Premium. Again, this comes back to complex scenarios where you want to make it possible to define the dependency across different projects and do some sequencing, I guess is probably the easiest way to summarize that. And then I grouped several things under compliance. Compliance is one of those things that crosses several of the stages. And so I thought it might be helpful to kind of pull it all together into one place. And these are things that either automate policies or, restrict access or relate to some of the common control capabilities a little bit more directly. So there's several different things here in 12.0, 12.1, and 12.2. I think they're pretty self-explanatory from what's on here. New capabilities. So this is something that is, going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, it's early. We want you to be aware. These are things that we don't recommend that you go push just yet, but know that they're coming and your customers may ask you about them. So design management is a big one. And this is going to open the door to a new persona, where designers can include more visual and graphical design artifacts in GitLab. So there were several things in 12.2, and those things will continue to build over time as well. But I would look at that as sort of an MVC. Analytics workspace. So this is kind of a combination of things under here: productivity analytics and cycle analytics. This is a reason to push Ultimate, but again, think of it as sort of an MVC. It's coming, don't push it yet. And the idea is that you want to be able to identify bottlenecks in your software development lifecycle and hone in and improve those. And that's what these analytics will help you with. GitLab Insights, sort of along the same genre with dashboards. And again, those dashboards, they were started in 11.9 as a feature flag, so that meant you had to kind of turn it on, but now it's generally available in 12.0. Upcoming. Look, before I go to upcoming, does anybody have any questions about what I've gone over in terms of some of the bigger, more notable things that have come out in the last 3 releases?
Hey, Cindy, it's Dave Astor. I got a question. Thanks very much for putting this together. Just one thing that I will mention. Yeah, I see you have like tags here for premium and ultimate. Can we add gold and silver on there as well so we understand if it's available on SaaS as well? Because right now it says premium ultimate, but does it still affect the other one? It may not be.
Yeah, good point. I was just trying to be short and sweet. None of these that I recall had a difference between SaaS and on-prem, but I'll go back and change those. So
Sure. No, I appreciate it. Thanks.
thank you.
Great stuff.
Thanks. Any other questions? Is this helpful to know?
Yes, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Real quick, would it be, I think it would also be helpful, we could also get the features categorized by whether they're managed, secure, configure, what have you.
Okay, so by stage?
Yeah.
Okay. Good point.
I do see a comment, Cindy, from Simon earlier on that said he liked the organizing it the way you did. But yeah, please chime in, folks. So great input, Rashad, on organizing by stage. What else?
Going forward, I expect that we'll also have the perspective or the dynamic of the value drivers.
I guess one other thought, this might be asking a lot. So I don't see this as something that's a necessity, but a real nice to have that would probably help some of us less technical folk would be actually seeing kind of the use case in action. Like, you know, this is what things were like. Now, like maybe a video that shows what things were like and now how much easier this new feature makes something, right? And why that's important. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good feedback, because I suspect in some of these we have videos already, or we have put something together from Dan's team, and you know, not all of them, but where we have, absolutely, I should pull those in. Well, good point. And on some of these that are bigger, you know, Dan, maybe that's something that we need to think about if we haven't done a video.
Yeah, when it enables us to tell a story and to present it from the perspective of the user value in total, then absolutely we'll do that. Some of these things are great, but they're more. We want to be careful not to just focus on feature by feature. So,
right.
But I absolutely agree. Yeah, we'll continue to roll these up, new capabilities into new demos.
Okay, awesome feedback.
So for example, Cindy, this is Itzik. You mentioned that we have a merge request approval API via vulnerability. So we check if there are vulnerabilities, and then based on that, you decide if to automatically merge or not. So we have a very nice demo for that. I'm not sure it's already on the website, but going to be very, very soon on the website. So this is one example that it's a good story, and we have already demo for that.
Wonderful. Let me make a note here. We'll add a video link.
Yeah, it's a click-through demo, not a video. It's an interactive video demo, step by step. Make it very clear and easy to use.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in search of a brave volunteer. So after what Cindy shared with us today, so a customer asks you, "Hey, well, I see 12.2 came out. What's going on with GitLab? What are some of the key things that I should know about as a customer?" I need a brave volunteer to kind of recite that back. What would you say?
Dave, I would say it doesn't have to be just 12.2, because the whole point of this was sort of the last several ones.
Good
and
point.
That's how I did it. But
Great point. Yeah, so maybe last several months.
John says just send them Adam Olson's email. Adam, is there an email we should put in, or John, that we should link into here?
If you're not getting Adam's monthly email that he sends out to his customers, you should. It's amazing.
Okay.
Yep, +1 on that. I send it to all my customers.
Yeah, Olson's not on, but yeah, it's really good.
Could we have something like that be an outreach template that we could just send out to people, rather than Adam having to develop that every month and us copy and paste it or whatever? It'd be great if it's just an outreach we could then just apply.
Yeah, that would be awesome, John. I agree.
I've taken that as an action. I don't, I'll play my new card, even though it's been 100 days or so, but look to see who's responsible for that and how we might get that done.
David, I'd say with this new release, with the merge trains and the new integrations with CI with the DAGs, I would say, hey, we've got some really amazing features that help with complex workflows, more so than what you're seeing now. We'd love to share these with you and demo them. I think it's going to be really important for large teams, and it's really going to improve the way you can manage all these merge requests going on and CI builds and all of that. So that's kind of how I would phrase it if I was on a call.
Thanks, Phil. Very helpful.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I wish I'd said that.
One thing I wanted to point out also about that DAG that directed acyclic graphs, which is just a fun thing to say. That's very competitive. Like I think Circle CI does that really well. So other applications do this. Other CI applications do this and hold it against us that we didn't have it. So that's a big thing to have now. Just so you know that if people are throwing FUD against us for not having it, we do now, and we're of course working more on that. I think there's a if you go to that link, I think there's an epic where they're talking about more and more being added to it. But yeah, other people do that. We didn't. Now we do.
And that FUD's primarily from Circle CI, David?
Circle CI is definitely one of them. I can get some others, but I know they had it, so I will check that as well.
Yeah, I think part of the key with that, and we're still working this out from a messaging perspective as it's just hitting the mark, hitting availability, but is to think is we need to describe it not as a DAG because that doesn't resonate with everyone. We need to talk about the value to the customer. For example, GitHub Actions just recently released and talked about how they can do matrixed builds. And that was like a primary feature thing that they had, how you can easily put in, hey, I've got, these 3 versions times these 3 platforms, and it will figure that out, right? This enables that. And so we need to massage the message. So we're talking about those kinds of values that this brings, as opposed to that we have a DAG that most people can pronounce the details of. So.
Great points. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me move ahead, if I can, to the upcoming. That's all right. So we've got, I kind of grouped these things by topic. So risk and compliance. I mentioned that we are evolving towards automating the customer's policies as opposed to kind of dictating what they should be. And so we've got some things coming in 12.3 and 12.4 in particular that are going to help around that. A big one in the secure stage is to not allow merging for a blacklisted license. That's something that has been kind of a blocker for people around that. And then there's several things around managing the pipelines and controlling how pipelines are handled. And you can just read in here. The next big thing is Vault integration. So, and I struggled with whether this belongs under compliance or integrations because I've got a section for that too. It's kind of both, but it's going to make this much more eloquent and also competitive with GitHub.
Hey, Cindy, can I make a quick comment on that?
Absolutely.
And I won't claim to be an expert, but GitHub, when they announced their secrets key store, I think it's just a fancy name for environmental variables, which is what we have today, at least the way I looked at it when I watched the announcement. And we feel like we're behind and we're kind of giving them, I think, more credit than they deserve in that sense. Like, there's a really big difference between Vault and like the secret store or the key values that GitHub has. I think we're on par and we've had it forever. And Vault integration is just going to take it to a totally new level where you have, rights distribution and separation of duties and compliance and key rotations and just, a whole new level that will be far and above what anybody else has out there. So I'm looking forward to the new feature, but I don't think we should downplay what we already have, at least when we compare to GitHub. I don't know if anybody else has ideas there.
Yeah, absolutely agree that what they announce is basically a catch up to us. Absolutely agree. And Vault is going to just catapult us beyond that. So.
I mean, we could rename environmental variables to secret store if we wanted. But I think we're going to get flack in the market for it, but because secret, whatever they call it, secret store sounds better, but it's the same.
One other note on this in Vault, I think important for us is this is about integration to clarify, Cindy, a Vault key that, or a Vault that the customer, so customers installed HashiCorp Vault and they're running it themselves and we're leveraging it. We're not actually installing and running a Vault instance, to be crystal clear, right?
That's not the way I read the epics and the issues that are out there, but I could be wrong there.
And I'm not sure.
Okay, and the reason I ask this is generally the way this gets set up. And sorry, HashiCorp's going to be talking at GitLab commit. We're going to be at their event, so there's a lot of good stuff with HashiCorp, which is great. Generally, people already have if they've set this up, Vault is pretty much a default standard, and they're generally running their Vault outside of the GitLab instance, and then they're using and referencing, they're using the Vault instance, and they're running that, and you have to back it up. I just think we need to be crystal clear here, because if you set up an enterprise Vault situation, it's keys to the kingdom, and it is at least in 3 to 4 different zones. There's a whole bunch of ways you want to set that up, that if we are running it inside, just to make it easy, we better be crystal clear that we are, and there's a different setup for an enterprise Vault than what we're doing. So I think there's a little confusion, like we think that this is a part of GitLab, and if it is, we need to be really clear what's going in it, because anyway, there's some nuances there I think we want to be crystal clear on, that I think is a little muddied right now, in my opinion.
Okay, great points. I've taken a note here. So luckily we've got a little bit of time to work that out, since that's coming with 12.4. But good point. I'll research that and clarify.
I probably can jump in and answer part of that at least. So we are the current plan for integration with Vault is exactly that. So setting up the integration points from a Vault instance that you would be running externally from GitLab. It is not something we are going to package in the same way we do with Prometheus or some tools like that. So that is going to be it will be all the plumbing and setup for you to be able to easily access Vault from your pipelines.
Thanks, Brian. That is awesome. And it's a reason to call in. So then it's like, hey, do you have Vault? Okay, and that actually is a great competitive differentiator, because I don't think that's in play with GitHub and all. So thank you, by the way, Brian.
Sure.
And I hate stifling the awesome conversation and back and forth. Just time check, Cindy. We need to wrap up, folks, so folks can get on to the next conversations. Is there anything else that you want to highlight? I know you've got great information here that folks can read and peruse at their leisure. Any kind of closing thoughts?
Just 2.12.4 is going to be a big security release, and also making more progress around integrating other tools, whether it's security or others. Have a look at this. Give me some feedback before we do the next one. And one other point on here is there's some things that are kind of way out there. If you've got some customers that have those interests, get them engaged and have them contribute. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks, everybody, for participating. And please do let us know your feedback. Send it to Cindy, send it to me. We'd love to hear how you liked this format, how we can continue to improve, and we'll iterate. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Cindy.